Hello, welcome to Health Talk. I'm Dr. Manny. In the new year, we'll all reevaluate our health, but for many, that means working out and eating better. But what about your mental health? Joining me now is Dr. Ben Michaelis. He's a clinical psychologist and says that mental reset might be exactly what you need to start the year fresh. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What is a mental reset?
You know, with things being as busy as they are, we all sort of tend to take on habits or patterns with our times or even relationships that we're not really thinking about. We're sort of trying to do more with less. And I like to use this time of year to evaluate those things and see if we're doing things that are helpful for us in the long run or if they're just short-term fixes. So that's the idea of a mental reset.
So help me create a mental reset for myself.
Sure.
I find myself that I am overwhelmed a lot with my daily routines.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to reset my mind or reset myself. What are the steps that I should take?
So the first thing you should do is look at the routines that you're doing. So for example, do you drive into work?
Yes.
So if there are things that you do when you drive into work, do you stop and, like one of my patients, for example, every morning when we did this, every morning he would stop and he would get coffee. And on Monday mornings, he would stop and get coffee and some mini donuts.
Right.
And it's a habit that you get into. It's not a healthy habit. And by just pausing and saying, oh, wait, what am I doing? Do you eat in the car? Or there's certain things that you do along the way that you can realize these are habits, and you can check in on them at this time of year to see if they're helping you or if they're really just quick fixes.
Okay. You say that one of the important things is to look at in other words, that we should look at mental health habits or mental health attitudes more frequently. Sometimes we pay attention, people talk about nutrition and, focus on about food, or exercise, but we seldom kind of look at our brains and say, how do I exercise this brain more effectively, or how do I calm it down more effectively? That's important, you think?
That's essential. I'm really glad that you described it in that way. It's sort of like, you think about it like when you go to the dentist, a couple of times a year, you have a checkup. And I think it's useful at a couple of times a year to say, what am I doing with myself? Am I really aligned with what I want to be doing? Am I aligned with my purpose? And New Year's, and I also do like a mental spring cleaning as well. They're really good times to just take a moment and just see how you're spending your time, because we're all so busy that we're just running.
So when you think about the things that you are doing, if they feel good to you and they look healthy to you, then stick by those. But those that make you uncomfortable and might not be healthy, you sort of telling me throw them out.
Well, it's some things that feel good aren't always good for us, as you know, like, cupcakes feel great for breakfast, as my kids will tell you, but they're not so good for you. But as adults, we can actually take a moment to say, all right, what are some things that I can do to scale some of these habits and ideas and patterns back? So one of the things that happens, especially as you get older, is you accumulate people in your life, right?
So one of the things you talk about is evaluate relationships.
Absolutely, because there are people that we have in our lives that may not actually add to our well-being and add to our happiness, and we just sort of get pulled into these relationships.
How do I know that this is somebody that I want to dump?
You can usually tell pretty quickly if you're like, you get that kind of uh-oh feeling. We've been living as social beings for the last 20,000 plus years, and we do have a really good sense of one another. And if you're like, every time I leave that woman or that person when we chat at work, I feel bad about myself, that's usually a sign that...
All right, so evaluate relationships, and if they make you feel that something is not kosher, then it's better to move on.
That's right.
Now, one of the problems that I find, and I talked to somebody about this yesterday, it's about being happy in your job or content.
Content.
The day was that in the U.S. you could sort of look at that in a very prospective way and say, you know what, I don't feel content with this profession that I have. I want to do something different.
Right.
Unfortunately, because of the economic downturn and the lack of access to jobs that many Americans face, that choice is just not there. You have to eat it.
Right.
So how do I deal with that, with that?
A lot of times it's about your perspective on these things. Yeah. And we all have people and environments around us. There are things that are not so great, And there are things that really are lovely. And if you have a job that you're not thrilled with, but every morning the woman on the way into work like gives you a smile, that's something that you can hold on to, and you look for those little pockets of joy,
right.
And those can expand and really make your day and your life much better.
So even if you're having a difficult time in your job and you don't feel fulfilled, but if you have to stay there, then try to look at the positive things within that system that you can sort of grow.
Exactly, and you mentioned that you're a father, and
right.
You do the job, for yourself, but because you're taking care of your kids, and you realize that's the higher principle that you're working towards. And if you keep that in mind, that can also really make you feel good, even if it's not the best work situation.
That if it doesn't kill me first.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you. Where can people get more information about all these things?
You can go to my website at drbenmichaelis.com. And I have, or on Twitter at Dr. Ben Michaelis.
Thank you so much for coming. And if you have a health question, you can send them here at Fox at drmanny@foxnews.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Manny.